And like I said, snow may land on top, but it also melts into nothing. The book we are going to be talking about today is A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, much like Sunrise on the Reaping was. So if you want to read this book and you haven't read the Hunger Games first, I think it would be fine because you don't need to have necessarily read the Hunger Games to understand this. It's this, then Sunrise on the Reaping, then the Hunger Games, if you want to go in chronological order. So, with that being said, there will be spoilers for this, and thus the Hunger Games, because it is a prequel to it, but you don't have to have read the Hunger Games to understand this. And let's get into the characters of this book. The characters of this book are our main character, Cornelius Snow, who, if you don't know, turns out to be President Snow in the main trilogy, the Hunger Games trilogy. This is his story, his understanding of how he became the president of Panem, and his journey to get there. And there's his friend, loosely, Sejanus, who is district-born but ended up in the capital due to his father's wealth and business practices, and Lucy Gray, a District 12 member who doesn't claim to be District 12, she claims to be a bard or a convy, and she claims that they were only forced to stay in District 12 because of the war and what that had done. So those are our three main characters. Do I like Cornelius Snow? Do I like President Snow? No, but you're not supposed to. Do I like Lucy Gray? Yes, and I feel really bad for her for what happens to her through the story, and I feel really bad for Sejanus too, because he was the only one advocating for things to change and for things to be better. But we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Although, side note, in the character section, what is with all of the character names in this book? It's like she just took a random name generator and just spun it, because these names are crazy and I could not tell you half of them because they're so bizarre. But I guess that's fitting with everything the Capitol does. They do everything kind of bizarrely. So with that being said, let's get into my thoughts on this book. So, this book, like I said, is a prequel to the original Hunger Games trilogy, focusing on President Snow himself, revealing his first name to be Cornelius, and we see him in the 10th year of the Hunger Games at 16 years old, and he is pulled by a Dr. Gall, who is the head game maker and head scientist of all the creepy bioengineered animals that the games eventually broadcast and showcase while they're going on. So, Professor Gall comes up with ideas to make the Hunger Games more intriguing to get more people to watch, because not only do people in the Capitol find it grotesque and sickening to watch, which who wouldn't? You're watching kids die for a war that happened in this book 10 years prior, all to keep the rebel fear deep in their minds. It's ridiculous. If anything, like these books have proven, all the Hunger Games are going to do is inspire people to want to rebel more. They're not sowing peace, they're sowing hate, neglect. They treat the districts like they're animals and expect them not to rebel. They treat them worse than animals in some cases and expect them not to rebel. And we see Dr. Gall and the head of the school, Dr. Highbottom, who they call high as a kite bottom because he's always high on morphine. We see them trying to figure out ways to make the games more engaging so people will watch them more and tune in more, barring that fact that not only do people in the capital find it disgusting, but no one in the district really has access to TV to be able to watch it in the first place. So they try to make watching the Hunger Games a mandatory thing, punishable by treason if you don't. But again, no one in the districts really has the money for TV, because they're considered less than animals and beneath everyone in the capital. They're all human, but that doesn't seem to matter to the capital members. And I can't help but wonder if she's pointing fingers at other things, because the reaping in these books is set to take place on July 4th, and the Hunger Games is set in the United States as according to this book. So I'm just going to leave that point there. I'm just going to leave that there. But in this book, it is the 10th Hunger Games, so they have been going on most of Cornelius Snow's life. He witnessed the war, he's seen backlash from it, he's witnessed the rebellion that caused the war, being very young at the time the war started. And now at 16, his school is like, you are going to mentor this year's Hunger Games tributes. You are going to make things more engaging for the audience so they'll want to tune in. And you're also going to give us ideas to make the Hunger Games more inviting. Which Snow, Cornelius, comes up with the idea to make bets and to force people to watch. And the mentor thing was an idea of Dr. Gall and Dean Highbottom. But Cornelius's friend Sejanus is very against this because, as I said in the character breakdown, he is a district-born citizen. He was not born in the capital, he just gained money and was able to move to the capital due to his father's business practices. So, in this, he at every turn is like they're just as human as we are. Having money doesn't make you better than anybody else, which no, it doesn't. And I found myself the whole time siding with Sejanus because, again, the capital treats the districts like they are nothing more than lowly animals, nothing better than pigs for slaughter, just horrible conditions. And not even to mention, they're punishing children for something that happened when they were too young to even remember it. They're punishing children for something that they had absolutely no hand in doing, because punishing the children makes it hit harder because they didn't do anything. At that point, it's not punishment. You're just a murderous monster. But because of this assignment, each one of Cornelius's class is assigned a tribute to mentor in the games. He getting the District 12 tribute, Lucy Gray. And all sorts of shenanigans happen. Half of the tributes and some of the mentors end up dead before the games even start because their safety protocols were non-existent, to say the least. And that's not even to say they put the tributes into a zoo enclosure that had been abandoned, like they were nothing more than monkeys. They put them in a monkey cage in a zoo and just let capital people gawk at them and throw things at them and just treat them like crap. And because of their lack in safety protocol, so many people wind up dead before the games even begin, which still doesn't tell them, hey, maybe these games aren't such a good idea. Maybe we should hit stop on this, because not only are half of the tributes that we're supposed to put in the games dead already, but multiple of the mentors are dead as well. That didn't set alarm bells off in anybody's brains that maybe you should hit the brakes on the games. No. They go forward with it like this is good entertainment. And then they treat the tributes as, once again, the bad guys, even though the tributes are only there because the Capitol demanded them to be, or otherwise their families would be executed. It's just, the Capitol are a bunch of hypocrites, and one thing I think that Suzanne Collins does really well is you would think because this is Snow's book, because it's his story, you would think that she would try to make him sympathetic or to justify his actions. And yeah, there are points where his heinous actions get justified, like when he ends up getting trapped in the games himself because of Sejanus, and he has to fight his way out. Justified, self-defense. They were coming to kill him, he defended himself. Done and done. But there are points where he does heinous things and then turns around and acts like people should feel bad for him. And I don't really want to say what those heinous things are because they are big plot points in the story, and I don't really want to spoil major things in this because I know that there are probably a lot of people out there that have not read this book yet and do want to read it. Like, it took me so long to read this book because I didn't enjoy the movie. And I watched the movie first with my brother because it was out. My brother wanted to watch it. He asked me if I wanted to watch it, and I said, sure, why not? And I think my opinion of the movie stands the exact same as my opinion on this book, because honestly, the movie, having now read the book, is a very good adaptation of the book. This book is just not very good, and I think it's mainly because how loosey-goosey everything felt with how the mentoring was handled and how the games were handled, and how, again, everything just felt loosey-goosey. And I think that's kind of the point. But also, Snow is just not a good character to read. Like, he's constantly, thinking of ways to manipulate people. He's constantly thinking of ways to pull things in his favor. And he's so wishy-washy with his motives. Like, he claims to love Lucy Gray because he got attached to her during mentoring her for the Hunger Games. But he does all these heinous things to save his own skin, no matter who he has to throw under the bus in the process. And you're like, I just want you to fall off a cliff. And I know that's not going to happen in this book because you're president in the rest of the books. But man, I want you to fall off a cliff because you are a horrible person. And you try to justify all these evil actions. And even though you follow the book through his eyes and you see everything through his eyes, you still don't sympathize with him at all. Like, there are points where she does try to make him sympathetic, like he lost his mom and he lost his dad. And there's this saying throughout the whole book, because his last name is Snow. Snow always lands on top. Snow always lands on top. And this isn't a spoiler because they say it literally throughout the whole book. But that's the final words of the book. Snow lands on top. And my final thought was, snow may land on top, but it also melts into nothing. Which, I don't know if that's fitting for the way he ended up in the Hunger Games or not, but that was my final thought, because that's how heinous and hard he is to follow. And we're not even following him through the games. He's mentoring the games. He's not in the games himself. He cheated in the games to protect Lucy Gray. He lied to his friends multiple times. leading to horrible things. He manipulates his teachers. He claims to hate his teachers, but then turns around and does just as bad of things as he does. He's just a selfish, power-hungry, ignorant, hypocritical jackass. And I'm so glad she didn't try too hard to make Snow any different, because we already know he is an evil monster. We don't need his sob story, especially not if this is a prequel to the games, because it's not going to make us think that he's any less of a monster. And like I said, Snow may land on top, but it also melts into nothing. This book, I enjoyed it, but it's not one of my favorites. I wouldn't mind reading it again if I had nothing else to read, but I'm not looking forward to picking this up again. Like, I'm not excited to read it again. Which are my same thoughts about the movie. It wasn't a bad movie, I didn't hate it, I would watch it if it was on, but I wouldn't really necessarily reach for it myself. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It's a good book. And if you're a big fan of the Hunger Games and you want to see how Snow became the monster he was in the Hunger Games, I don't think this is going to disappoint. But for me, it was just kind of meh. So, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!